G'day, welcome back to Plugged In Australia. Today's headlines: Polestar launches its biggest model expansion ever. The first NVES results reveal 19 brands missing their CO2 targets. Denza is on the warpath with plans for 5 new models and 20 plus dealers this year. Zeekr 7X deliveries are slowed by shipping delays. Volkswagen prices its new Tiguan and Tayron plug-in hybrids. Volgren ramps up electric bus production. And later on in the episode, why green hydrogen for transport has now officially failed in Australia. Let's get into it. The Australian government has just released the very first set of performance results under the new Vehicle Efficiency Standard for the 2025 calendar year. And these numbers give us the clearest picture yet of how the industry is actually responding to the new rules that started on 1 January 2025. Out of 59 regulated entities, 40 met or exceeded their interim CO2 targets and actually banked credits, while 19 missed their targets and now have accrued liabilities that they must deal with by the end of 2027. So the brands that missed and now carrying liabilities are Mazda Motor Corporation. Now that one had the biggest hit. It had 508,517 liabilities across 38,465 vehicles sold. Some of the other brands were Nissan, Subaru, Hyundai, General Motors Australia, and also Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, Porsche, Ferrari, Honda, Jaguar Land Rover, KG Mobility, Mahindra, Maserati, Rolls-Royce, SAIC, which is LDV, and the various Stellantis divisions listed separately. On the winning side, we have 40 entities recorded negative interim emissions values, meaning they generated surplus credits. And no surprise, the biggest winners were BYD with over 4.2 million credits, Toyota Motor Company Australia had 2.8 million, Tesla had 2.21, and strong showings from BMW, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, Volkswagen, Volvo, Chery, GWM, Geely/Zeekr, Polestar, and a few of the Stellantis brands as well. Across the whole regulated fleet of more than 620,000 vehicles, the interim target for passenger cars and SUVs, so Type 1 vehicles, was 141 grams of CO2 per kilometre. The actual fleet average came in at 114 grams per kilometre, a solid 21% better than required. For utes, vans and large off-roaders, classified as Type 2, the target was 210 grams per kilometre and the real average was 199 grams per kilometre. Overall, there is already a net surplus of 15.9 million NVES units in the system, which means a functioning credit trading market is up and running from day one. Now, what does this actually mean for you and I as Australian buyers? The NVES is working exactly as designed. Brands that bring lots of EVs, PHEVs, and efficient hybrids are banking credits they can sell to the high-emission brands. Those high-emission brands have until the end of 2027 to buy credits or improve their own mix. If they cannot, they face a $50 per unit penalty starting from February 2028. For Mazda, that 508,517 liability could theoretically cost over $25 million if left unpaid. Money that would almost certainly flow through to higher prices on their remaining ICE models and force them to bring more low-emissions vehicles faster. Now, Hyundai Australia's COO Gavin Donaldson was very open about it. Even though Hyundai has over $4 million, potentially up to $8.4 million in NVES liabilities tied to its high output N performance models, the brand says the N division is staying 100% because of the brand halo, customer loyalty, and community it creates. Donaldson said, quote, "If we sell a lot more EVs, I'll be ordering more N models, end quote. That is the NVES working in practice. Strong EV sales directly fund continued choice in fun cars that many of us love. The Federal Infrastructure Minister, Catherine King, said the results prove cleaner vehicles and a competitive market can go hand in hand. The Electric Vehicle Council pointed out that many traditional petrol and diesel manufacturers still beat their one-year targets, which shows the benchmarks were realistic and gives confidence to strengthen them in future years, so Australia does not become a dumping ground for high-emission vehicles from overseas. The Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries highlighted the main risk is that subdued consumer demand for EVs is still the biggest challenge. Even though the product choice and pricing have never been better, pure EV sales are only around 12% of the new car market in this first reporting period. If that does not pick up, compliance costs will rise, and these costs will eventually reach driveways through higher prices on popular ICE models. For everyday buyers, the practical takeaway is this. The NVES is already delivering more low-emission options in showrooms and giving manufacturers real financial incentives to bring them here quickly. But the scheme relies on you actually buying the EVs and plug-in hybrids that are now available at competitive prices with massive running cost savings. If Australian families and fleets keep choosing the high emissions utes, the large SUVs in the same volumes as before, the pressure on pricing will grow. The good news is the infrastructure, the incentives, and the product quality have never been stronger. Brands like BYD, Tesla, MG, Kia, Hyundai, etc. are already banking huge credits that help the entire industry meet targets without massive disruption. The first NVES report is a milestone. It shows the transition is real and measurable, but it is happening at a speed that matches Australian buyers' behaviour rather than some forced timeline. The next reporting periods will be stricter, so expect even more competitive pricing and even more practical EV and plug-in hybrid options to arrive throughout 2026 and 2024. For you, the buyer, that means more choice, not less, and it puts the decision squarely in your hands. Choose the lower emission vehicle and you are directly helping keep prices stable and choice alive. Polestar has just revealed its biggest product offensive since the brand was founded, and the news could not have come at a better time for a company that has faced real financial and sales pressure, but is now clearly turning the corner. Global sales in 2025 grew 34% to 60,119 vehicles, and here in Australia, deliveries reached 2,373 units, up 38.5% year on year. It's driven mainly by the Polestar 3 and 4, even though Polestar 2 sales dropped 48.9% as the model ages. The headline for 2026 to 2028 is a 4-model wave that directly targets the practical family segments and performance niches where volume actually lives in Australia. First is the new Wagon or estate version of the current Polestar 4. This keeps the same stunning fastback design and high-performance powertrain, but adds a proper rear window. I know. Taller roofline, significantly more rear seat headroom and boot space. Polestar describes it as combining the space of an estate and the versatility of an SUV with the dynamic performance that is Polestar. European deliveries start in the fourth quarter of 2026, and Australia is confirmed on the list. Some spy shots from January already show the lifted wagon styling, and this directly fixes one of the main criticisms Australian families had about the current camera-only Polestar 4. Honestly, it was a beautiful car, but just not very practical for prams, sports gears, luggage if you're going away, just that sort of stuff. And next comes an all-new generation Polestar 2, arriving early 2027. It will sit lower and sleeker than the current slightly raised model and will build on the 190,000 plus units already sold worldwide and the very passionate owner community that has developed around it. This new Polestar 2 is aimed straight at the Tesla Model 3 and the refreshed BYD Seal in the premium mid-size EV sedan space, that many Australian professionals and small families are shopping in right now. Then we have the Polestar 5 flagship 4-door Grand Tourer, the direct Porsche Taycan rival. That lands in Australia in the second half of 2026, priced from a measly $171,000 before on roads, with up to 650 kilowatts and 1,015 newton meters of torque on a lightweight bonded aluminium platform. Now, this is the halo performance car that will remind everyone why Polestar started as a performance brand in the first place. And finally, the Polestar 7 compact SUV is slated for 2028. It will be built in Europe at the Volvo factory in Slovakia on a shared Geely platform architecture and is designed to compete in the compact premium SUV segment that is growing fast in Australia. Polestar Australia has confirmed it will arrive here in 2028 and says, quote, "We have to get it right," showing the brand is focused on quality and real-world Australian suitability rather than just rushing volume. This expansion is Polestar's explicit plan to move from being a niche performance EV brand to a full family of desirable, practical electric cars that can actually generate a sustainable profit. The company has been unprofitable because of heavy investment in new technology, intense Chinese competition, and global tariffs. But these new models are engineered to change that equation by hitting the exact segments where Australian families and performance buyers want to spend their money. For Aussie buyers, this is genuinely exciting news. The Polestar 4 Wagon will give families a stylish, quick, high-tech alternative to the Tesla Model Y or the BYD C-Line 7 without the full boxy SUV look. The new Polestar 2 will bring sharper pricing, better range, and more practicality to the mid-size sedan fight that many commuters love. The Polestar 5 delivers the pure driving thrill that many EV buyers still miss from their previous sports cars or hot hatches, and the Polestar 7 will eventually fill the compact premium SUV that is currently dominated by the XC40 Recharge and the incoming smaller Chinese offerings. Realistically though, Polestar is still a small volume premium player. 2,373 Australian sales in 2025 is respectable, but nowhere near mass market territory. However, the combination of this 4-model offensive, a 30% increase in its global retail network, and the improving financial position means the brand is positioned for low double-digit growth this year in 2026. Pricing will stay premium, but the added practicality and choice should broaden appeal dramatically and bring in buyers who previously ruled out Polestar because the current range was too limited for family needs. I think this is a real turnaround story, and a battled EV brand that many analysts wrote off a year ago is now launching the most ambitious model plan in its short history and is doing it with a clear focus on the practical, family-friendly and performance segments that actually sell in Australia. For Aussie drivers, it means more high-quality, European-engineered EVs with genuine real-world usability, arriving steadily over the next 24 months. Exactly the kind of competition that keeps every brand honest across all different sections of the market and gives buyers better choice at better prices. Alright, continuing with the premium theme, Denza, BYD's dedicated premium sub-brand, has gone from official Australian launch to some serious market momentum in just a few short months. With only the B5 and the B8 plug-in hybrid body-on-frame SUV currently on sale, the B5 is about $74,990 plus on roads, and the B8 $91,000 plus on roads. The brand already has 1,000 firm orders and is attracting high-quality trade-ins from Toyota, Land Cruiser, Lexus, Audi, BMW, etc. Chief Operating Officer Mark Harland has now laid out an extremely ambitious 2026 roadmap. He said the brand would like to have 4, maybe 5 new cars this year. That means up to 5 new Denza models landing in Australia across 2026, taking the total range to 7 vehicles by the end of the year. At the same time, Denza is expanding its physical dealer network from the current 7 outlets to between 20 to 25 full Denza stores by December 2026, plus certifying selected existing BYD dealers for Denza service and support work. The plans include a potential $250,000 range flagship SUV and an 850 kilowatt shooting brake. Clear signals that Denza is not stopping at off-road plug-in hybrids, but is moving into pure luxury territory and ultra high performance electric vehicles, while still using BYD's vertical integration to keep pricing quote-unquote competitive and delivery times fast. The strategy is textbook premium execution. Build volume and service capability first with the capable and reasonably competitively priced B5 and B8, which are already stealing sales from traditional ladder frame four-wheel drives. Then rapidly fill out the range with more road-biased luxury and performance models whilst scaling the retail and after-sales footprint to match. For Aussie buyers, this is significant on several levels. Denza is proving that Chinese luxury vehicles can win over traditional premium customers when the product, warranty, service promise and pricing are all right. The B5 and B8 already offer robust off-road ability, strong hybrid electric range, genuinely premium interiors and pricing that undercuts equivalent German or Japanese offerings by a pretty noticeable margin. The rapid expansion to 20 to 25 dealers means service will no longer be a concern, even for buyers in regional areas, and the 5-model onslaught in a single year shows the agility and speed that only vertically integrated manufacturers currently possess. Realistically, Denza still has to prove long-term reliability and strong resale values in the Australian luxury segment, but the early signs are very positive. 1,000 orders in a few months, and the quality of the trade-ins coming in suggests that early adopters are already convinced and spreading the word. This is BYD executing at the premium end of the market exactly the same way it did at the volume end. Fast, aggressive, customer-focused, and backed by real product substance. It's forcing every established luxury brand to rethink their Australian strategy and pricing. I got to say, the Denzas, I haven't seen one in person. However, a lot of the reviews that I've seen online, they show an absolutely really nice product, a very premium, very premium product. I guess time will only tell whether or not people are willing to pay that premium for these Chinese vehicles. They are fantastic vehicles. However, we just got to see how we go with it. I do hope that they manage to get a little bit of traction. 1,000 orders is fantastic, but you look at some other companies, Tesla, for example, 1 million plus orders for Cybertruck. I know it's not the same thing, but just to give you an example. And then when, push comes to shove, they falls out the back. So hopefully that's not the case here, and hopefully they can continue that momentum. Let's keep going. Zeekr's large electric SUV, the 7X, has seen its Australian delivery pace slow noticeably due to a combination of global battery supply issues and local port congestion. The brand had set an internal target of at least 2,000 deliveries by the end of 2025, however, ultimately managed only 1,206 by December, with another 418 units delivered in January of 2026. Now look, that's still solid growth, but well short of expectations given that pre-order interest exceeded 2,500 units. Deliveries of the 7X began in mid-October 2025, however, subsequent shipments have been delayed by several weeks. A Zeekr spokesperson has confirmed the company is prioritizing existing customer orders and working through the backlog as quickly as possible, with new shipments expected to start flowing more regularly in the coming weeks. For buyers who have already placed orders, this means longer wait times than originally hoped, but the 7X itself has been very well received for its 800-volt architecture, its ultra-fast charging capability, spacious and premium interior, and competitive pricing in the large electric SUV market. These delays are purely logistical and supply chain related rather than any issues with the vehicles themselves. A reminder that even the fastest growing Chinese EV brands are still navigating the realities of global battery supply and our good old Australian port operations. Zeekr remains fully on track for strong growth through 2026 once the current backlog is cleared. The situation also highlights why brands that have invested in local assembly plants or more diversified supply chains sometimes have an execution advantage in the short term. For anyone with a 7X on order, the advice is simple: patience. The car is worth waiting for, which I'm sure you know. The supply issues are temporary, and the 2026 volume is expected to be significantly higher. I know there were some strikes at some of the ports, and it just this was probably mid last year though, but it just compounds and kicks the can down the road. And a lot of the boats, when they come in, the boat will be due to dock in say, Port Kembla on, say it was due to dock today, the 20th of February, and they're delayed, and so they're not going to get the dock till the 22nd. So rather than missing their docking dates at some of the other ports, they'll just skip Kembla and go straight to, Port of Melbourne, or then after Melbourne to Adelaide, wherever they're going, and then get another spot and come back. It's just the ships make that decision. It's got nothing to do with the car manufacturers, and then the docks obviously have their delays as well. This is the reason we get so many delays for cars, even though it doesn't take that long to get the cars over from China. The ports really do create that massive backlog. Volkswagen has officially released Australian pricing for its 2 new plug-in hybrid SUVs that will arrive in showrooms during the second quarter of 2026. So we have 2 Tiguan e-hybrid models, the 150 TSI e-hybrid Elegance. That one is 64,590 MLP, and the 200 TSI e-hybrid R-Line is 74,550 MLP. And then we have the slightly larger Tayron. That one is a 150 TSI hybrid Elegance at 62,390 MLP, and 200 TSI e-hybrid R-Line at 76,550 MLP. Both models use the same advanced 1.5 litre turbo petrol engine combined with an electric motor and a 19.7 kilowatt hour battery pack, delivering total system outputs of either 150 kilowatt or 200 kilowatt. On the WLTP test cycle, they achieve 113 to 114 kilometres of pure electric range, with a combined hybrid fuel consumption as low as 1.6 to 1.8 litres per 100 kilometres. Now, that is in laboratory testing, and I know a lot of the evidence shows that with plug-in hybrids, those numbers are vastly underreported. They are significantly higher than that. As you've heard me say before, I am not a fan of plug-in hybrids. You have to not only look after the electronics side of things in the vehicle, but you also have all the regular combustion stuff. Yes, it's good. You have a plug, and if you plug it in, you've got a reasonable amount of electric-only range, which is more than enough for 99% of people's daily commutes. However, you've got to plug it in. So if you get lazy and you just let the petrol go, then you're losing that ability there. So yes, okay, I think plug-in hybrids are good for maybe the next 4 to 5 years, but I really think after that, we just need to get rid of them. We just need to get into full EVs. Battery prices have come down significantly. Let's just make the jump. I know the problem is that dealers love them because the servicing. You've got the petrol engine, you've got all your filters, your oils, everything's still there that they can still make a quid off on the servicing end of things. So that's something that the manufacturers need to sort out with the dealers and how they're going to compensate them for the loss of servicing. These vehicles will also support AC charging up to 11 kilowatts 3-phase and DC fast charging up to 40 kilowatts. South Australia's local bus manufacturing industry is receiving a major boost from the shift to electric vehicles. Volgren has already delivered 40 hybrid buses and now has 90 pure battery electric buses in production or delivery for Adelaide Metro, with the first electric units having arrived in December 2025, and the remainder will be rolling out steadily through early 2026. The Optimus body design, cool name, used on these electric buses features a lightweight aluminium structure that is specifically optimized for energy efficiency, reduced weight, and easier maintenance. All critical factors for urban bus routes where every kilogram and every kilowatt hour matters. Volgren has also opened a brand new dedicated service facility in Adelaide with more than 15 work bays and a 25-metre spray booth to handle repairs, warranty work, and part supplies for both its own vehicles and Marco Polo buses operating in the state. In addition, 28 Endura school buses built on Volvo's B8R chassis are being supplied to the South Australian Department for Education for use on regional and school runs. This expansion is a direct result of South Australia's commitment to transport electrification, and it demonstrates that local manufacturing can play a strong role in the heavy vehicle side of the EV transition. Every electric bus now operating on Adelaide streets means fewer diesel emissions in the city, quieter and smoother rides for passengers, and valuable real-world operating data on battery performance in Australian heat and stop-start conditions. This fleet-level shift perfectly complements the passenger EV growth we see every day and shows how the entire transport ecosystem is moving together. The federal and state incentive picture for electric vehicles has matured and become much more targeted in 2026 after the big upfront consumer rebates of 2022 to 2024 were wound back. At the federal level, the most valuable incentive remains the fringe benefits tax exemption for pure battery EVs when purchased through a novated lease or as a company car, but only for vehicles under the $91,387 luxury car tax thresholds. And we know plug-in hybrids have been excluded from this since April of 2025. There is also the higher luxury car tax threshold of $91,307 for fuel-efficient vehicles compared with the regular one, which is $80,567. That's for your petrol and zero and diesel cars rather. Plus zero import tariff on qualifying EVs under that threshold. The Clean Energy Finance Corporation is still offering a $60 million low-interest finance package that gives Hyundai and Kia EV buyers a 0.5 to 1% interest rate discount on eligible models. At a state level, the picture varies, but it still can be helpful. In the ACT, you get emissions-based registration. So zero-emission vehicles are around $382 a year, so it's about 30 to 50% cheaper. Stamp duty is now a minimum 2.5% after the full exemption ended in September of last year, and there are 3% interest loans of up to $15,000 for ZEVs under the LCT threshold. For New South Wales, it still offers fleet incentives of $5,000 to $50,000 per vehicle. Current funding round is exhausted, however, it is expected to reopen in Q2 of this year, plus emissions-based registration discounts. Now, that New South Wales incentive is based on GVM, so smaller cars are going to get the $5,000 and the $50,000 is for trucks. Other states have largely shifted their focus to fleet and business buyers with registration discounts and targeted grants rather than broad consumer cash rebates. The overall landscape is now much more about total cost of ownership and encouraging fleet uptake rather than headline grabbing, $3,000 or $5,000 consumer rebates. For private buyers, a novated lease FBT exemption is still the single biggest saving available, often worth $5,000 to $12,000 or more per year, depending on your salary package. For businesses and fleets, the combination of FBT exemption, higher LCT threshold, and state registration discounts make the numbers work almost on every route type. Now, these incentives, while less visible than a few years ago, are much more sustainable long term and are still actively driving both private and fleet adoption, especially when you combine them with the falling purchase prices we are seeing from Chinese and volume EV brands. The message for February 2026 is clear. The incentives have not disappeared, they have just become smarter and much more focused on buyers who can make the biggest difference. Multiple recent project cancellations, economic analysis, and manufacturer exits have made it official. Green hydrogen for road transport in Australia is no longer a realistic, near-term or even a medium-term solution. Production costs are still above $10 per kilogram, even with heavy subsidies. Electrolysis alone requires around 53 kilowatt hours of energy to produce 1 kilogram, enough to power an average home for 3 days. And there are additional 12 to 36% energy losses in compression, liquefaction and storage and transport. the round-trip efficiency from renewable electricity to wheels in a fuel cell vehicle ends up being below 30%. Major projects have stalled or just been abandoned. Woodside and Trafigura have walked away from large-scale plans. The Orica government subsidy deal worth $574 million delivers just 4,700 tonnes of green hydrogen per year at an effective cost of $10.99 per kilogram, or between $915 and $1,500 per tonne of CO2 abated, between 26 and 44 times more expensive than ordinary carbon credit trading at $30 to $40 per tonne. Scaling this approach nationally would require tens of billions of dollars that simply do not exist in the budget. Globally, sales of hydrogen fuel cell passenger vehicles have collapsed more than 80% since 2021. Refueling stations are closing, and even manufacturers such as Stellantis have exited development because there is no prospect of mid-term economic sustainability. In Australia, there are still fewer than 20 public hydrogen refueling stations and virtually no hydrogen passenger cars available to ordinary buyers, only a handful of corporate leases. By contrast, battery electric vehicles already deliver 65 to 100% lower cost per kilometre, achieve wheel-to-wheel efficiencies above 90% when charged on renewable electricity, and benefit from a charging network that is expanding rapidly and battery prices that continue to fall. The physics and the economics overwhelmingly favour batteries for 95+% of all road transport applications in Australia. The failure of green hydrogen is not a defeat for decarbonisation. It is a necessary and healthy correction that allows Australia to focus money, policies and engineering efforts on the technologies that actually work. Battery EVs and plug-in hybrids for now are the realistic and achievable path. The sooner government, policy, industry investment and public discussion reflect that reality, the faster we will actually cut our transport emissions in this country. And that's a wrap up of episode 20 of Plugged In Australia for 20th of February 2026, and it's Friday. I hope you enjoyed the episode. There's some very interesting information in regards to the NVES. I think it's putting some real pressure on the brands to bring in some more the established brands, to bring in some more cheaper, some competitive, not necessarily cheaper, but just value for money EVs. That's the one there. Plug-in hybrids are helping along the way. They are doing their job as the transition vehicle, so to speak. And I hope that, if you had a plug-in hybrid for one vehicle and you then replace it, the next one with a full EV, once you realise that you really didn't have to put fuel in it that often. You basically drove it on electric the entire time. Look, appreciate any feedback you might have. info@pluggedinaustralia.com.au. Thank you very much for listening, and until the next time, stay plugged in and stay charged. Ci vediamo.